Nintendo, beloved video game company, safe, warm, nurturing. For anyone who has played video games, this Japanese company probably has a very special place in your heart. Gamers of all ages get nostalgic thinking about that first time they played Mario, Donkey Kong, or Zelda. But what if I told you that this company has a darker history than they want to let on? That's right. Much like Disney and movies, once you push past Nintendo's family-friendly image, the company's business practices start to paint a very different picture. From the treatment of their own employees to destroying the communities who play their games, Nintendo, the billion-dollar corporation that defined your childhood, isn't necessarily the fatherly figure they make themselves out to be. Today, we'll be exploring some of the unethical things that Nintendo has done over the years and present a different picture of this beloved developer. This is the dark side of Nintendo. Before we start today's video, I just want to remind you guys to please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay up to date. It helps us to keep creating the content that we hope you enjoy. Anyway, back to the video. Historically, Nintendo has been one of the least consumer-friendly companies within the gaming industry. A fact that was often ignored since, hey, these are the guys that made Mario.
It's me, Mario!
But in recent years, players have been less willing to put up with their bullshit. A good example of this is a universal issue with stick drift in the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con controllers. Basically, controllers for Nintendo's newest console had a tendency to just drift in random directions even when no one was touching the stick. Rather than apologize, fix the issue, and send out new controllers to those who ran into this problem, Nintendo forced players to either pay out of pocket to send it in for repairs or straight up buy a brand new Joy-Con. Unfortunately, neither option guaranteed that the problem wouldn't happen again, and more than once, players have had to repeatedly buy new Joy-Cons to fix that wandering stick. The problem got so bad that numerous lawsuits were levied against Nintendo regarding the issue. Next, let's look at something that Nintendo has been lagging behind on for nearly 2 decades: online functionality. Compared to virtually every other video game company on planet Earth, Nintendo's online services are in the Stone Age. Laggy, inconsistent, and locking cloud services behind a paywall, the online functionality for Nintendo games is just abysmal. But for many years, people simply accepted it because playing Nintendo games online was free. And then they announced that they were going to start an online service subscription. Okay, sure, we gotta pay $5 a month, but surely this means that we're going to get good online infrastructure, right? I mean, after all, we're paying for it. Well, unfortunately, Nintendo Switch Online has provided little to no improvements to the service since its implementation. And when compared to consoles like PlayStation and Xbox, it's really no comparison. They just took the same shitty online service and made you pay for it monthly. Not necessarily illegal, but certainly not what people were expecting. But okay, poor consumer practices are one thing. What about using forced labor to produce your consoles? Well, Nintendo was listed among 84 companies linked to Chinese forced labor camps. Nintendo has obviously denied the reports, and President Shuntaro Furukawa claimed that while some of the factories implicated were a part of the company's supply chain, Nintendo's own investigation didn't find any signs of forced labor. Adding, quote, "We conduct our business under the policy that if there is any actual or serious risk of forced labor, not only for Uyghurs, we will stop doing business with them." Right. Because of course, Nintendo's own internal investigation wouldn't find any signs of forced labor. Because it's Nintendo's own investigation, and Nintendo's being paid for it to be done. Other than indentured servitude being company policy, Nintendo has also been criticized for its treatment of its own employees. It was reported that Nintendo of America had been accused of violating workers' rights to form a union. The report alleged that the company would threaten any employees trying to organize with threats of disciplinary action and even layoffs. While Nintendo isn't alone in pushing anti-union rhetoric, especially within the gaming industry, the news of the company's treatment of its employees shocked many within the community. For them, this wasn't the Nintendo that they knew and loved, and among those shocked was former president of Nintendo of America, Reggie Fils-Aimé.
The reports I hear really strike me as just not the company I knew. A core focus while I was at Nintendo of America was having a healthy culture within the company. And I know I was able to achieve that. And certainly what's being described does not seem like a healthy culture.
But okay, companies as big as Nintendo are notorious for mistreating their employees. Long hours, low pay, abusive culture, it's the American dream, and it's disturbingly prevalent in game dev culture today. But surely the fans of Nintendo would never receive this level of abuse, right? Wrong. And to see just how bad Nintendo can be, look no further than YouTube. If you're a professional YouTuber, or just some guy who likes Nintendo games and wants to make videos about them, you're gonna have to figure out how to navigate YouTube's strict guidelines for content creation. Oh, and also you're gonna have to outright fight Nintendo for the right to produce content using their games. Nintendo is notoriously protective of their own property, often taking down content that falls well within the parameters of fair use. While Nintendo has tried to work with content creators in the past, their attempt came in the way of the Nintendo Creators Program, which allowed Nintendo to take revenue directly from creators and required them to jump through hoops, going through a registration process for each video before it could be published. This registration process could take up to 3 days, and was hair-pullingly frustrating for anyone trying to complete it. So yeah, rather than help uplift creators and fans of their games, it seemed like Nintendo was much happier doing everything in their power to strain the already rocky relationship they had with content creators on the internet. PewDiePie himself criticized the Nintendo Creators Program, saying, quote, "I also think this is a slap in the face to the YouTube channels that do focus on Nintendo games exclusively. The people who have helped and showed passion for Nintendo's community are the ones left in the dirt the most." While the Creator Program was eventually ended in 2018, more issues arose recently when a wave of copyright strikes on YouTube videos of Project Plus, a modded Super Smash Bros. Game, resulted in Smash Bros. Content that falls within the guidelines of fair use being struck and taken down. While the takedown of regular Smash Bros. Content was likely a mistake, the reckless wave of mass copyright takedowns just goes to show that Nintendo simply doesn't care about how content creators are treated. While Nintendo has been notoriously difficult to work with for content creators, the company has been outright hostile of ROM hackers and homebrew developers. So if you were thinking of modding a Nintendo game, this might be a warning to think twice. For most companies, if you get caught modding or hacking their titles, the company will ask you politely to cease and desist. However, Nintendo has taken some more drastic and almost Orwellian measures to ensure that homebrew developers face holy retribution for their actions. In a leaked document, it was revealed that Nintendo funded the surveillance of ROM hacker Namod, the person who originally cracked the 3DS in 2013. The documents contained extensive details about Namod's life, from where they worked to how they spent their free time. There was even a flowchart on how Nintendo intended to approach Namod legally. And unfortunately, this was not an isolated incident, and there have been allegations of Nintendo cyber stalking modders and hackers in the community that reach as far back as 2008. Look, protecting your IP is one thing, but a private company going out of their way to track down an individual, dissect their lives, and determine the most efficient way to tear them apart is kind of creepy. Especially since Nintendo simply refuses to offer a way to purchase or play much of their older catalog of games. I'm sure that many fans would love to play old titles and pay good money to do so, but getting your hands on a physical copy of a game that is no longer being produced can prove to be difficult, if not impossible. Obviously, downloading ROMs isn't exactly legal, but it's often the only way to gain access to some older games, especially when the means available, such as the 3DS and Wii U eShops, are being discontinued as we speak. But what about those who legally purchase Nintendo games, form tight-knit communities, and want to show off how much they love playing their favorite titles? Surely Nintendo is all for players expressing their enthusiasm. Well, actually, doing so will get you a big, fat you from Papa Nintendo. That's right, we had to talk about it. You knew we were going to talk about it. So let's jump in to Nintendo's repeated attempts to murder the competitive Super Smash Bros. Community. While there have been countless instances of Nintendo hamstringing and trying to kill Smash over the years, the first notable instance took place at EVO 2013. As I'm sure many of you know, EVO is one of the biggest fighting game tournaments in the world, and EVO 2013 featured a donation drive to decide the last game that would be featured on Championship Sunday. With more than $94,000 raised for charity, Super Smash Bros. Melee earned a spot for itself and became the final game featured at the biggest fighting game tournament in the world. What was Nintendo's response to all of this? Well, they woke up and simply chose violence.
Ah! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh!
Seeing that the event was going to be broadcasted all over the world, Nintendo wanted to shut it down. No, not just the stream, they wanted to shut down the entire Melee event. Just snap their fingers and make it disappear. Luckily, the public backlash was fast and furious. Because I guess shutting down a tournament that raised nearly $100,000 for breast cancer research is not exactly the best PR, Nintendo reversed their decision almost immediately. And even though the tournament was allowed to proceed, EVO 2013 was an omen of how the relationship between Nintendo and the competitive Smash community would look like for years to come. For a while in the mid-2010s, it seemed like Nintendo had cooled off and developed a "you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone" kind of relationship with the Smash scene. However, in 2020, a cease and desist letter was sent to the organizers of the Big House tournament, which, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, planned to host that year's iteration of the tournament online. To play Smash Melee online, competitors use a program called Slippy, which has built-in rollback netcode and makes playing the 20-year-old title feel buttery online. Since in-person events were cancelled, people saw Slippy online events as a great compromise to keep the scene alive. Unfortunately, Slippy is technically a mod of the game and requires players to download a ROM of Melee to play it. Nintendo, being Nintendo, didn't like this one bit and forced the tournament to shut down, threatening legal action. Not long after this incident went public, an anonymous Twitter user published a twitlonger that listed the many ways Nintendo had actively harmed the Smash community over the years. Many of the instances on the list occurred behind closed doors, and most in the community weren't even aware that they happened. In the twitlonger, the user pointed out how not only was Nintendo actively avoiding any opportunity to support the Smash community, they often went out of their way to prevent third parties from supporting the scene as well. For example, E-League, which has hosted tournaments for CSGO and Street Fighter, was prohibited from running any large events for Smash. Other companies, like ESL and Red Bull, who wanted to run their own Smash circuit, were similarly told no. Heck, remember when Ninja famously tweeted that he had, quote, "something cooking up for the Smash community," and then nothing happened? Well, it turns out that Ninja was going to donate $500,000 to the EVO prize pool for Smash, and this act of charity was ultimately shut down by Nintendo because supporting the communities that love their games in any way, shape, or form is liable to get you sued. Seriously, what the f***? To say the least, Nintendo has some skeletons in the closet, like literal skeletons. We already talked about the slave labor. And while the company has been long shielded from criticism thanks to the nostalgia that many have towards their games, their business practices and underhanded dealings needed to come to light at some point. Nintendo has done a lot to help push the gaming industry forward, and their positives should be celebrated. However, it's important to remember that many of these positives come at the expense of mistreated employees, cyber-stalked ROM hackers, and communities of passionate gamers who have had to fight for their right just to exist. Nintendo is not the family-friendly company they want you to believe they are. No matter what their public image would have you believe, Nintendo is a company first and foremost, and will do anything to make money off of your nostalgia. Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on Nintendo as a company? Do they get a pass because they've made games like Mario? Or are we right to criticize them for doing some really bad things? What steps do you think we, as gamers, can take to make the community a safer place and show Nintendo that abuse will not be accepted? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This video is made possible thanks to our wonderful patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this list, and shout out to Jason B, Brendan, QB, Foxy, Moth, Pachana, Sierra, Shampoo, Spartacus, and Yashichi for being platinum supporters, as well as an extra special shout out to Steven and Marco for being diamond supporters. We hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to talk to us, check out our Discord. If you want to support our channel and get info on unreleased videos, check out our Patreon. If you want to help us out in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is Jonah. Thanks for watching.